What's up, gamers? So we got some news today. Chris Paul being cut from the Phoenix Suns. Something interesting to talk about, while we have NBA Finals Game 3 tonight. So this is kind of getting a jump on the offseason. He's going to be a free agent in, about a month or so when free agency opens up. Kind of wanted to talk about some potential landing spots for him, the contract, why he was waived, kind of why this makes sense for the Suns, what their plans are, stuff like that. So let's talk about this. This is Spotrac. It has his contract details. This has already been updated with him being cut. But effectively what this says, for 2023-24, the Suns owe him $15.8 million. Now, they're probably not going to pay him all of that next year. I saw on Twitter they can probably stretch and waive and stretch him over the next 5 seasons. So that'll be $3-point-something million a year for the next 5 years. So they don't have to bite the bullet and pay him all that dead money just for next year and have all of that on their salary cap, basically. So they're probably going to waive and stretch him. And he also had another year on the end of that contract for the 2024-25 season that was fully non-guaranteed. So that one is just completely gone. That money has vanished into thin air. So makes sense for Phoenix to do this now. It's a little bit surprising seeing a guy like this being cut, especially because he just signed that contract extension like a year and a half ago or something like that. But he has been, they're moving on from him now. Makes sense with the new era. They've got a new coach, new ownership group. Obviously, the big trade for Kevin Durant is going to kind of overhaul their entire roster. They're building their core around Durant and Booker now. Expecting a lot of, relatively big changes for the Suns this summer. Maybe a DeAndre Ayton trade, although it sounds more like Frank Vogel wants to keep him. We'll see if that's real or not. You have a couple of other contracts to move, like Landry Shamet, guys like that. So we'll see what they do, but they're going to have a pretty different roster going into next season, and it kind of makes sense to just want to get rid of Chris Paul now, because he's getting older, not as good as he used to be, and with that partial guarantee, maybe you could have traded him in some sort of salary matching move, but I think they'd rather just open up that space. They're not going to have any cap space with, all of this stuff on their books with Ayton and Booker and Durant and still this partial guarantee for Chris Paul, but it kind of just gives them a little bit more flexibility, and it does a move that they were definitely going to do next season, kind of just gets a year ahead of that, if that makes sense. So now, where might Chris Paul end up? There's a couple of obvious destinations. There's a few dark horses that I think could be interested. I'm sure we're going to see some rumors, probably by the time this video is out, we're going to have some concrete, reporting on where he's kind of looking at. But we'll see. This is just my speculation. This happened maybe 15 minutes ago as I'm recording this, so this is just off the top of the dome. Who could potentially be interested in Chris Paul? Now, it kind of comes down to a couple of things for him. Is he wanting to ring chase, or is he looking for another big payday, or is he looking to be a mentor on a younger team? It kind of depends on what he wants to do as he enters the last couple of seasons of his career. But that's going to be up to him, and like I said, I'm sure we're going to see some more concrete details on what he's looking for over the next couple of days. But just a couple of teams that could be in. Really, any of these teams near the top of the East. I think Milwaukee maybe, depends on what they do with Drew Holiday. I don't necessarily see that happening. The Celtics have guards. I don't really think they need him. I don't know if they'll be interested. Philly definitely is one. I think if they lose James Harden, obviously Chris Paul has a history with Daryl Morey and all of that. They could be looking for a veteran guard. There might be a kind of a big roster shakeup there this offseason, so I could see the Sixers being interested here. Cleveland, no. Knicks, no. They have Brunson. The Brooklyn Nets, I don't really know why he'd go there. Hawks, no. They have Trey. Miami Heat, maybe, it would kind of just be swapping Kyle Lowry for Chris Paul at that point, which I don't really know how much sense that makes. The Bulls, I could definitely see the Bulls being interested here. Now, they're not going to be a contender. They could, have a big roster shakeup this offseason as well. But they've needed a guard for a while, and I could see the Bulls being a team that's interested. They may, they could probably have their mid-level exception to use. But like I said, it kind of depends on what their roster looks like. If Vucevic is coming back, maybe there's a DeRozan trade. I don't know. Guys like Alex Caruso could potentially be on the move. You also have Kobe White. He's going to be a restricted free agent this summer, so if they lose him, maybe that makes it a little bit more likely. But again, that's not a contending team, so maybe he just wants to go there and play a bigger role. The Raptors are going to enter a rebuild, so no. All these teams down here, there's really no reason for it. Yeah, Washington, Indiana, no. Orlando, no. I mean, no, because they're going to... Orlando's a good young team, but they don't really have a need for a guy like Chris Paul. They're on a good trajectory anyway. I just don't think they need him yet. Charlotte, if they're looking for like a culture-setting vet, but I don't know why he'd go there. Pistons, similar deal. Denver's in the finals. I don't think they're going to shake up their roster that big. They don't really need a point guard anyway. Memphis is one that I could see just because of the Ja Morant thing. He could be suspended for potentially half the season or more. And Memphis has needed veterans. I've kind of talked about this, on other shows that I've done, but Memphis really, really, really needs a veteran to come in and show the team how to play. Because they have Steven Adams, and that's pretty much it. They let Kyle Anderson walk, all of that good stuff. It's clear that there's a culture issue with the Memphis Grizzlies, and especially if Ja Morant's going to be suspended, if they still think they can be a good team and want to keep up their regular season record, Chris Paul could absolutely be a good fit, step in there, go into the starting role for Morant for however long until he gets back, and then, he can potentially be like a second guard in the starting lineup. If they lose Dylan Brooks, maybe that opens up a spot. I could see Memphis realistically being a team because they are a contender. I couldn't really see them winning the title, but it's within the realm of possibility. I think it makes sense for both sides there if he's interested in the challenge of kind of mentoring a team that really needs a guy to come in and show them how to win. And Chris Paul's been around the league for a long time, so I think that could make sense. The Kings, there's no need for him. Obviously, the Suns, he just left, so obviously not. The Clippers, I could see that as well. Los Angeles, there could definitely be a reunion there. I think he liked his time there. He could go back to LA. They've needed a point guard, assuming that they stick with this Kawhi Paul George thing. I think that could absolutely make sense. The Golden State Warriors, I mean, it's a ring-chasing destination. He wouldn't start. He'd come off the bench there. They only have the vet minimum to offer him. They're way up against the cap, and with the CBA, they're not going to have access to the mid-level anyway, so... if he wants to come off the bench and play less minutes and maybe try to win a title, that could potentially be an option, but I don't really see it. The Lakers are going to be the one that everybody's talking about. That is like the number one. I've already seen people on Twitter talking about how that's probably what's going to happen. We'll see. I don't think it's set in stone yet. Like I said, rumors are going to come out. We'll see what the reality is, but the Lakers would make sense. They're probably going to lose D'Angelo Russell in free agency. He's been good friends with LeBron for a long time. He wanted to go to the Lakers previously to team up with Kobe, and that trade got shut down by David Stern, and people have big misconceptions about that, but whatever. It would make sense for him to potentially finish his career with the Lakers, kind of bring it a little bit full circle there, back to Los Angeles, the team that originally tried to trade for him, play with LeBron, go for a ring. I could definitely see that. The Timberwolves, they have Mike Conley as their vet guard. I don't think they need it. OKC, he had a good year there. I think he liked it in Oklahoma City. The franchise, I think, would probably welcome him back. Do they really need a guy like that? I mean, they have Shea playing point for them. I think they could kind of make it work, them playing together. I mean, they did it previously when he was there, right? But I could maybe see OKC if they're trying to make a little bit more of a push next year. The Pelicans are a team that I like in terms of fit. I think he could play next to CJ McCollum in the backcourt. This is a team that has been injury plagued, and Chris Paul is not exempt from that as well. He's had injury issues as he's gotten older. But it's a team that if they can get healthy, it's a really good roster. They could really go places. It could be a breakout season for the Pelicans next year if they can ever get Zion and Brandon Ingram and everybody healthy and on the court at the same time. Like I said, they've needed a guard, and so Chris Paul could potentially be a guy to step in there. Dallas, maybe another potential interesting fit, playing with Luka. The team is veteran hunting. We'll see what happens with Kyrie. If Kyrie goes back, they don't necessarily need a point guard, but it's possible. The Jazz, they're not, their timeline does not match up with this. Portland, I don't think so. Obviously they have Lillard. If they trade Lillard, they're going into a rebuild, so they wouldn't have any use for him. It doesn't really make sense there. And then these last two teams, the Rockets and the Spurs, Both of them I actually could see. We'll start with Houston. There was actually rumors that they'd be interested in trading for him on the contract that he had. Now that he's a free agent, those could potentially, it's a little easier to get a hold of him, obviously. If they get James Harden back, they could kind of get the band back together and redo the 2018 Houston Rockets team. Would be a little bit interesting. I don't know if I see that happening just because they're not a contender. I mean, the rumors are that the Rockets are looking to be better next season. They could potentially trade the number 4 pick for veteran help. It looks like they're going to be able to sign James Harden. You get Chris Paul in there as well. A couple of other veterans on the squad. They could maybe be pushing for a play-in berth, maybe a playoff seed. We'll see. This is a team that hasn't been good in a while. Their young core, who knows what stage of development everybody's at. I don't know if any of them are going to have a breakout season next year. We'll see. But if the Rockets are looking for veterans, they could also offer Chris Paul some money. That's the other thing here, because they're one of the few teams with cap space. And so if they're trying to maybe make a push, they could offer him a sizable contract. I could see that happening. The Spurs, another team, they are going to have money as well, so that's another option. And they're going to draft Victor Wembanyama, have a chance to put together a much better roster for next season. Depends on what they want to do. Are you tanking for another year, try to get one more lottery pick next to Wembanyama before you really go all in on this next era? Or are you trying to contend right away? Or not contend, obviously, they're not going to win the title next season. But, at least be competitive, right? Make a push for the play-in, make a push for a top 6 playoff seed by adding Chris Paul, some other veterans next to Victor. It's a possibility. So yeah, I guess I just went through every team, but here's a quick recap of who I think are likely destinations. Philadelphia, could absolutely see it. The Chicago Bulls, I could see. A lot more teams in the West out here. I like Memphis as a dark horse. Either of the LA teams, the Clippers, the Lakers are probably going to be the most likely destination there. I could see him going back to OKC. I think the Pelicans could be a good fit. Maybe Dallas, and then both of these Texas teams, the Spurs or the Rockets, if he's looking for a payday. Those could be potential destinations. So there you go. There's my Chris Paul spiel and potential teams that he could sign with this summer. I'm interested to see where he goes. Another interesting free agent added to the pool. And what is a pretty dry free agency class. But we'll see. Guy getting older, entering the last couple of years of his career. We'll see what he wants to do. I'm excited to see where he ends up. Certainly a pretty surprising move by the Phoenix Suns here, but one that I do think it does make a little bit of sense here. So, yeah, that's about it for me today.